Good evening and welcome to the MG EV's community podcast, streaming live tonight, Monday the 21st of November 2022. On this podcast, we discuss all MG electrical vehicles, hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Dave Stewart, Dave S on the forum, and I drive a MG ZS long range. And joining us this week from West Yorkshire's Jake Lewis. Hello, Jake.
Hi, everybody. I'm MG ZS EV West Yorkshire, and I drive also a long-range Trophy Connect.
And we'll hear about your other interests later on in the show. From Wigan, Les Burrows. Hi, Les.
Hi, Dave. I'm Les Burrows. Same name on the forum. Currently driving an MG5 standard range and an MG4 SE.
Oh, right. Good. And with a wee bit of a frog in his throat, but a trooper all the same, from Essex, Barry Hager. Hello, Barry.
Good evening, everybody. It's Barry Hager and Barry H on the forum. I drive a first-generation ZS, and I have an interest in the car you see behind me.
And thanks, Barry. And from the Charlie Group, MG, their Innovations Development Manager, Miles Roberts.
Hi everyone, Miles Roberts CG on the forum, and controversially I'm not currently driving an MG. I've actually got a different company car now, but many miles driven in a lot of MG5s and MG ZS EVs.
And you know a thing or two about MGs, Miles?
I'll try to.
Which we will definitely be tapping into. If you're watching us live, thank you for joining us, and please click on the like button and join in the conversations in the chat window. Quite a few on board already, which is great to see. 61 watching and some good comments already coming in. If you're watching later, thank you for choosing to watch this video, and please subscribe to get a notification of when we go live the next time. In tonight's podcast, we're going to be discussing the MG4, the software updates, and now that folk are getting a bit more accustomed to it, just getting their general impressions about the MG4. The MG5, the refresh, is now available. Has anybody seen one? And we'll maybe ask Miles a bit about what the MG5 offers there. Delivery updates, yeah, it's always on there every week. Every podcast. We know it's an item of contention for a lot of people. And even for the last item, I let off a bit of steam on the forum this week. And as the economics of driving an EV comes into question, the planned road tax implementation, public charging costs rising electrical costs domestically, is owning an EV still a good idea from an economic perspective? So we'll kick off these. I think if we could maybe look at the MG4 first. Les, you've got an MG4, is that correct?
Yeah, I have, yeah. My wife has, anyway. My wife has.
You've had that for what, about 6-8 weeks?
About 5 weeks now. About 5 weeks, Dave. Yeah, we had it about 5 weeks. She's getting used to it. She quite likes it. It's got its few little qualms here and there, which we're not 100% with, but yeah, she's glad she bought it now. Actually, she's actually glad she bought it now. She took me a long time to persuade her into it, but she's got it now, so we'll see where it goes. I mean, hopefully Miles will be able to update it a little bit on the software updates that's coming, because it needs a few, quite honestly.
Right.
A couple of things that's needed there.
So, Jake, I'm right thinking you've got an MG4 now?
No, Dave. We're hoping to get one. Initially, well, first of all, I've got two MG ZS EVs. Like Barry, I've got the Mark 1. And I gave my old Mark 1 to my wife that she's now had since May, and I've owned my Mark 2 ZS since May. But ever since the MG4's been released, I've shown an interest in maybe upgrading the Mark 1. We own the Mark 1 completely outright, so we don't owe any money. And effectively, we could potentially get a new car for just over 10 grand if we trade in the Mark 1. So kept showing my wife the videos on YouTube, Miles's videos, Luscombe's videos, and drip feeding her with the information. I know, and I saw the eyebrow raise there, Miles. But yeah, the different videos on YouTube, and I've not seen really one negative video on the MG4, and I've watched pretty much them all. And yes, it does become a little bit repetitive watching them all, but I honestly haven't seen a bad one. And some of the guys that out there that usually say bad things didn't. So that says a lot to me. So we went for a test drive on the 13th of November earlier this month at MG Burnley. My wife only wanted to drive on A roads. She's never driven on motorways. And she's only been past a test 4 years. So I took the car onto the M65. We had a drive down there. We came back on the A roads. She drove back and she enjoyed it, and so did I. And we're going to go for it, I think. Burnley had one coming in shortly. We don't know exactly when, but I understand it's going to be sometime in December. And with the basis of maybe possibly trading in the Mark 1, we're going to go for it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And the reason we're going for the trophy over the SE is simply because my wife's used to the rear reversing camera on the ZS exclusive. She wanted the trophy reversing cameras. Again, she's used to that. And she wouldn't have bought an SE because it didn't have the camera. Funnily enough, I would have gone for it, but she didn't want it. So yeah. We love the car. It handles and drives just as the reviewers say it does. Yes, it has its quirks, and I agree with Les. Some hidden things within the infotainment system, unlike the Trophy Connect, you've got more buttons that have got access to certain things. But yes, you can program your star buttons, as I understand you can. So yeah, we just need to get it set up for our use, and I'm looking forward to getting it next month.
Yeah, that's great. You're in an enviable position because you'll have seen the original ZS, then there's the second iteration of the ZS,
Yeah.
and now you've got something to compare that with as well, with the MG4. What's jumping out at you as good points, bad points, or interest, parts of interest?
For me, well, first of all, if I compare the ZS, I like the sky roof, like you did. The obviously MG4 doesn't have that. Whether the all-wheel drive will or not, I don't know. A glass roof, that is. So I like that part of the ZS, and I like the fact that it has a relatively large boot. The MG4 slightly smaller boot, and obviously a slightly higher driving position in the ZS compared to the 4. But I know my wife likes the looks of the MG4. I do as well. I guess, would I ever sell my ZS to get an MG4? Well, if Miles has got an all-wheel drive coming, you never know. 450 brake horsepower one, possibly.
All right.
Well, if we get the that or the Cyberster, if that comes in with all-wheel drive and 450 horsepower, that's just in time for our sort of joint midlife crisis, I think, Jake. So that could work as well.
No, but I think overall, I really do like both cars. I think the rear-wheel drive of the MG4 does make a big difference. You can definitely feel that on the road. You're not wheel spinning out of junctions when you are in the ZS, and I continue to do that. I tend to drive the ZS in normal mode, and I probably would do the same in the 4 as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed that with the MG4, the bottom of my road where I go down here, with the MG5, I've got a with the MG5, which is not much bigger really, it's only massive inches, it's not much. I've got to do that in 2 turns because I can't do it. But the MG4's got a fantastic lock on it, probably because it's rear-wheel drive and you've got that extra lock on the steering. Yeah. It's really, I can whip it around in one, just no problem at all. It really is good in turning circles. Very, very good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And the bit that sticks out when you sort of put your leg out of the door, that's noticeable on the 4. And I'm right in saying, Miles, that's because the battery pack sat quite high up, is it? They kind of designed the lower part of the car to cover it over. I don't know.
I think that the battery itself is very thin. It's only 11 centimeters thick. But I believe that the bits that stick out, like I say, beyond the door, so effectively the sills.
Yeah, the sills
are quite wide. That's extra strengthening that goes down there to basically help, because it's a thin battery pack and it's sort of sat within the chassis rails. They've made the sills thicker, so that it's obviously better protected. So in the event of a side impact, it's not going to damage the battery pack.
Yeah.
Whereas in some of the other cars, where it's a taller, slightly narrower battery pack, they can sort of allow a bit more crunchage on the side without it having to impinge. But due to the physical dimensions of the battery pack, they need to make sure it's well protected. So
yeah, I honestly couldn't really fault the MG4 at all, Dave. To be honest, excellent car, and the reviews do it justice. To be honest.
Yeah, it's getting great reviews, and I've actually seen one now. I was down spending a few days down in the Borders, and I just came around the corner, and there's one of the grey ones, similar to behind Barry. I came round the corner, and I just said to my wife, "Oh, that's one of the MG4s," and it was away within seconds. So that's the first one I've actually seen live. Yeah, I do like. Yeah, I've said it before. I like the sitting up position on the ZS, and I find it very comfortable. I certainly had a look at the boot space just online, and I prefer the bigger boot space. But I'm just blown away at how improved the second version of the ZS is. I loved the first version, as everybody knows. The second version is just so much better, and the extra range just has taken all anxiety out of my motoring. Being able just to jump in the car and get to Edinburgh without thinking, "Oh God, what will I do?" And so I just like it. One or two silly wee things. I still cannot believe we can't switch off the radio. I just think that's crazy. I think they could land a man in the moon 20 or 40 years ago, and we can't switch off the radio. Come on, Miles, get it sorted out for
The
God's
4 and 5's the same, Dave. You can't switch them off either.
Yeah.
You just turn them down or mute them.
In my wife's actually, I'm just thinking about both cars I've got now. So my wife's Volvo XC40, that one has a similar setup to the MG4, as in it's got no start button. You just get in and put your foot on the brake, and it wakes it up. And then the stereo doesn't. On that one, the stereo turns off once the driver's got out of the seat and closed the door. So I know on the MG4 it carries on playing until you've actually locked the car, doesn't it? And on the ZS EV as well. Yeah. On the XC40, once the driver's got out of the car and closed the door, that turns off the radio and the dash and everything else.
If I arrive home and the radio's been on loud because me and my son are in the car and we've got Bon Jovi playing really loud in the background or whatever we're playing, and it's quite late at night, what I do is turn the car off. The radio stays on, but if you keep your finger on the home button, then it shuts down. But it's only when the power's cut to the 12 volt and the rest of the car will it shut down. Other than that, you're right, it stays on.
Yeah, obviously it's bagpipe music and Kaylee music I'm listening to all the time. Just
yeah, the 4's just the same. You've just got the same thing with that. It stays on until you switch. You actually either press the button on the door handles to lock it, or you use the key and lock it, and everything stays on until you locked it, and then it goes off.
Yeah,
yeah.
But other than that, no, really liking the improvements from the long range particularly. So no, it's great. Barry, when are you likely to make the move? Or
well, I've got a test drive booked with the MG5 on Wednesday morning. So excuse me. So I'd like to wait. I'd like to see what that's like by comparison. But other than that, I'm ready to go. But I've got to find somebody that's got one that will part me with my money.
Yeah. So well, you'll keep us posted on that one, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was told today that if I wanted an MG5 facelift, there's stuff in stock which I could have within 2 weeks.
All right.
Oh, that's good. That's what I was going to ask the question today. What's the stock like? But I didn't get in. Well, that's good. I'm good to hear that. You've had a test drive in an MG4, haven't you, Barry?
Yeah. I mean, my main concern. Yeah, I didn't like the seal, getting leg over the seal, getting my leg over. As I get out, you have to move the seat quite high to make it easier to get out. And I just thought, it could make it difficult for some of the passengers that I take as well. So that's my reservation.
Yeah, that was one of the issues we had. That was one of the issues we had with it, but she's got used to it now. She's managing with it at the moment. But yeah, she does sometimes carry a couple of passengers who she's had to literally struggling getting them in, getting them over the sill. It is quite wide, that sill. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's so wide. It's crazy. I mean, I don't know Maz, but I think that, I mean, when we first test drove the car, the salesman who was with us at the time said to my wife, "Oh, it's okay. You can put your foot on that when you get out, get in and out on the sill, like you'd have on a Range Rover, like a running board. You know what I mean, on the side."
Sort of thing,
Yeah, I said, and as soon as she tried to put anything on it, I could see it was giving. You know what I mean? It was flexing, and I thought, no, don't press on that. For God's sake, don't press on that. I don't know about whether it's for strength or whether it's for protection of the battery. I think it's more just decorative more than anything else. But it
could be it could be that there's some. It's like an aero piece that's covering some.
Because the car sweeps in on it as it goes. It sweeps in, and I think it just keeps it that way.
Yeah, it must be a aerodynamic basis.
We've got used to it. We've got used to it. You get used to it. It's like everything else. You get used to it. It's not a problem now. We'll just get used to it. But I say this has been a problem. She had a couple of elderly people. She's tried to get in the car, and they've been struggling a bit to get in. But they've got in eventually.
But you've put mud flaps on now, haven't you? You've mud flaps.
I have put mud flaps on it now because it was absolutely. Well, it didn't take much rain to get that plastic part, the sill, really grubby. And I noticed it when we did the test drive. It was really grubby. And I thought, bloody hell, this is not going to keep clean very long. Anyway, one of the guys on the forum, I think it was yesterday, I think it was, he put some on and put some pictures on. And I thought, yeah, they look good. I like that. I'll send for them. I already am on the MG5, but the dealer fitted them on the MG5 when I bought the car. Well, the MG4 apparently doesn't, it's not on the accessory list for some reason. So anyway, I sent for some off AliExpress in China. They took about a week and a half, 10 days maybe to come. And it took me about, 25 minutes to put them on. Made a big difference. Made a difference.
Les, did you get a granny charger with the MG4?
When I bought the MG4, it was coming with a Type 2.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want that. I said, I want a granny.
Yeah.
And the chap at Chorley, Stephen, he hadn't got one, but he came up with one which was probably out of another vehicle. It had been used. It had been used. I could see that it had been used.
Yeah.
But it works. It's fine. I'm quite happy with that. I wasn't bothered by that because I've already got 2 Type 2s. I don't need another one.
I only asked because I think the original batch didn't, and then I think
no, they didn't. That's right.
The next batch that is due, probably mine. I'm hoping. I don't know.
That's correct. That's correct. Jake. That's correct. It's supposed to be coming with the granny charger. It should come with a granny charger. I mean, the Type 2, it's okay, but I mean, if you get to a charger that's not working, and you've got a Type 2 cable, and that's all you've got, there's nothing you can do with that. If you're in a hotel or something, you can always find a 13 amp plug somewhere, plug a granny charger in. You'd be absolutely desperate, can't you? Somebody, even if you go, you pay them for the electric, somebody will plug you in for an hour or two. I'm sure
it's handy for when you're away, and for those people.
Yeah, dandy. I always carry both. I carry both. I carry the granny and I carry the Type 2. Always.
Good.
Always. Never go anywhere without them. When I got the Ford, it come with a Type 2, but I got him to change it for a granny.
Yeah, the granny charger situation is interesting because when the cars come with the granny charger only, everyone says they need the Type 2. And everyone says it should come with the Type 2. Why is it, all the public chargers are Type 2? What the hell use the granny charger? And then when they've brought it with a Type 2 instead of a granny charger, everyone says, well, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? I need a granny charger. So it's frustrating me because I suppose, ideally they come with both, but a lot of manufacturers, like Nissan, used to supply 2 cables with every car, and now they don't. You have to pay an extra 250 quid or 300 quid if you want the granny charger on a Leaf. The Nissan Ariya comes with a granny charger, but realistically it's going to add about 4 miles of range in an hour. So is there actually a point in, are you ever going to use that really as a method of charging a car with a 63?
It's an emergency issue. It's an emergency thing.
There's only one time I've actually needed to use a granny charger, and that was when I ran out of charge going up BTOC, delivering a car up to Edinburgh. And I just couldn't make it to the next charger. I ended up pulling into a roadside cafe and using an extension reel out of the cafe window into a 3-pin charger. Was there for about half an hour because all I needed to get was a couple of percent. It was an extra 1% just so I could make it over the hill to get to the actual rapid charger over the hill. And that's the one time that was 4 years ago, I think, 5 years ago. So it's a fair while since.
Yeah, I've needed it
so-
twice for exactly the same thing.
Yeah, so I think the granny charger is that's increasingly with longer range cars. You're less likely that was on a, that when I ran out there, that was on a Leaf 30 kilowatt hour. It was November. It was cold. It was raining. It was windy. It was 4 or 5 years ago, so there weren't quite as many chargers around. I think now, with the increased range and the car warns you to charge when you've got like 50 miles left.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely going to be chargers within 50 miles. Even in Wales, even in rural North Yorkshire, you can find a charger, either a type 2 or a rapid charge within 50 miles.
We tend to use them miles when we go to Wales, funnily enough, and we use them a couple of times a year, but they are handy because we tend to get holiday bungalows and we just get permission off the owner. And yeah, I appreciate as the battery's bigger, you're going to get less range because it's a big capacity to fill, but I still prefer having one if there's an opportunity to have one, I would say. But you're right, it makes less impact with a bigger battery, doesn't it?
I go and visit my son 225 miles, 230 miles away, and he hasn't got a car charger on his property, but he has got a 13 amp socket outside. I just plug the granny charger in, stick it underneath the car, and it charges up overnight. Not a problem.
Yeah, I find it very useful. Like that. Yeah, very useful on holiday because I think like Joe, I tend to go to sort of remote cottages and things, and if you can get plug in overnight, it means that the next morning you're always, even though it's only going to put 50 miles in or something like that overnight, that 50 miles gives you that 50 miles running around.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, yeah.
And when I bought my 5, it came with both.
Well, mine didn't. I bought a type 2 because at the time I was told by the dealer, well, MG says you've got a means of charging it because you have a granny charger. And it was anyway, I kind of accepted that because they were going to be providing me with a free wall charger anyway, which was a tethered one, so I was covered. But what I do find really, really useful when I'm holidaying to use that granny charger is I've got one of those. I've got a 10 meter extension lead with a waterproof clamshell socket on the end of it. They start coming in the shops this time of year because people use them for hooking up the Christmas lights outdoors. And it cost me about 20 quid. And I keep that just looped up in under the deck in the car at all times. And so whenever I'm on holiday, I've got it there and I can just get that extension. So you've got, 15 meters from if you take your granny charger 5 meters and then you've got your a 10 meter extension lead. I've never been caught out. I couldn't get a charge overnight as long as the owner was prepared to let me plug in.
Yeah, that's good. Good.
Anyway, I was going to come on to software updates. Are there software updates for the MG4, Miles?
There have been some software improvements made by MG, yes. As well as, obviously, we've spoken about in previous podcasts about the now resolved issue with the oil from the breather on the MG4. That's been resolved, and so cars should be, if anyone's noticed that they've had oil deposited on their driveway or whatever from the MG4, if they speak to their dealer, they'll be able to arrange for the breather modification to be done. At the same time, the dealer could do some updates for you. So the updates that are available are there is now an update which gets rid of the beta test software message on Android Auto on the MG4. So on the MG4 it says, for evaluation purposes only, please, not for resale. That was from when the car was beta tested, and it was an old version of software that was on the nav unit. So there's a new version of that will fix that. There's a new version of software which rather importantly fixes the lane keep assist. Lane keep assist on the MG4 pre-update was okay 95% of the time, then 5% it wanted to murder you. It just you'd be driving down the road and suddenly it would decide it decides that and it tugs you quite firmly towards either the centre reservation or a tree or whatever. It's a bit like trying to, you remember the horror film Christine, where the car's trying to kill people. It's a bit like that. There is a software update which now fixes that, thank God. So that's available now, and there are also a couple of other software updates for various onboard features which may improve compatibility with rapid charging, that sort of thing as well. So yeah, if you speak to your dealer, they will be able to upgrade the software. Bernie's just asked on the chat, what's the current software version number? Does anyone know? These are software versions for each individual ECU, and they're not visible to the user. You'd have to actually look on with a diagnostic laptop, and you have to see basically there's only the dealer that can see the software version of the ECUs. So you can't you can't look as a user and go, I've got the latest version of software, unfortunately. You would be able to on the nav software, but if you're seeing the Android Auto message, then you know you haven't got the latest version. What else was I going to say? So software updates, yeah, basically there are some software updates. MG, as previous models, is making constant improvements based on feedback that we're giving. And so there are improvements being made, and so hopefully that now overcomes most of the issues that were identified on these original sort of cars which were sent in the first batch.
Can I ask you a couple of questions, Miles?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about lane keep assist, the software update to stop that going one side or the other. Does that also work with the traffic jam assist? Because that's doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same ECU. Yes, there's
the same thing, is it?
Same ECU. So that will improve the operation of both those systems. Yes. I
like that traffic jam assist. I think that's brilliant. It's almost one pedal driving for me. I think it's fantastic, that thing. But I don't like the steering side of it. The steering side of it is dangerous for me. I don't like it, so I don't use it. And the lane keep assist, no, I don't want that at all.
If you've driven the MG Pilot on the MG5,
never driven one before, Miles, with the Pilots on. Never driven one.
TV, then the operation of the MG4 is now close to that, so it's a lot more smooth in its.
That's good then. That's good.
Turning and
nice to hear. And the other question was: is the infotainment system the same on the new MG5, the updated MG5, as what the MG4 is? Is it the same setup?
So it's a slightly different screen, so it's a different shape, but it's basically running the same software. So yeah, the new so the MG4 is running Android-based software, whereas the old MG5 used to use the Windows system, which the Mark 1 ZS EV used as well. So the new facelifted MG5 is now using the Android-based system that you've seen in the ZS EV Mark 2 and the MG4, which is much faster to load, much quicker, much more.
The MG4 is okay for
that. Bit grey, if anything. That's the only thing. If you used your coloured tiles on your old version, and the new versions, you've got a mainly sort of grey look and feel to it. But yeah, I've just seen a message coming actually from Roy Watts. How about the driver monitor? I have a constant error, but it's better than the bongs. The driver monitoring system is currently they're currently working on a software update for that. That will be rolled out to dealers as soon as it's available. It's not currently there, but they are working on it.
I think that's also been removed, isn't it, Miles, on the next batch, I've heard?
I've heard reports that on social media. I've not seen physical cars that are coming across, so I've not been told that it's been removed, but I've seen it on Facebook that some people have seen in Europe the trophies not come with the camera.
Yeah, some of the deliveries I think that people have had in the last couple of weeks have not had it on, and they're the trophy ones as well. Yeah,
I've seen that as well, Jake. Sorry, yeah. I've seen the same. Yeah.
Has it been NCAP tested yet? Yeah, I don't think it has it?
No, it's not been reported as yet. No. In fairness, the Nissan Ariya only just came out this last week on NCAP, and we've had that car in showrooms since July. So it does take a couple of months for them to come through.
I think the Mark 1 ZS, when I bought mine in September 2019 and actually took delivery of it in March 20, it was probably around June, July when it got its actual clearance on 5-star. So, like you say, it does take a while to come round.
Yeah. I see Swatcher One's asking if there is a personalized setting that you can deploy. So every time you go in the car, it's the way that you want.
No, I don't know if this is because I came from driving Nissan Leaf, and they always used to. If you're in eco mode, it remembered you're in eco mode.
This was supposed to happen on the 4 when it was advertised, when it was supposed to stay in its settings.
Yeah.
You set to eco,
Having
it
said
stayed there.
that-
It's not doing that.
Yeah, having said that, it didn't get. It didn't used to remember if it was in B mode or D mode. It just, you had to do that manually. But yeah, we used to remember eco mode at least. And then all of these new MGs don't remember the mode; they just default to standard.
Standard.
And whatever their default level of regen is, which on most of them it's level 3 regen, on some of them it's level 2. But the Araya now that I've got at the moment, that defaults to standard mode, not eco. Even if if you've had it in eco or sport, it just doesn't remember. And it can remember whether it's got e-pedal mode on or not, but it can't remember B mode or anything like that. So I don't know if the driving mode defaulting to standard is something that they do for, I don't know whether it's some sort of WLTP thing where it's got to default to a standard mode, that's what it's based the mileage on. I don't know why it would do that, but I say Leaf used to remember eco mode, but now the Nissan Araya doesn't, and I don't know why that would be the case. So I don't know if there's some sort of the way they write the software now, it has to default to a certain mode. I don't know. There was some subsection of some sort of rule somewhere that Bosch wrote probably that just says to make it so that drivers can get in a car and not be surprised by the power or lack thereof, that it defaults to standard every time you get in. But
the last couple of days I've been experimenting with the regen settings, because in theory, I mean, in high mode, which is what it defaults to, having it in that mode, it should give you a little bit more regen. Well, I've been looking at the range that I've been getting out of that car when we've been driving it. It's only done about 900 miles now. It's not done a lot. I don't think it's got to 1,000 miles yet. And it's averaged over that period that we've had it about 3.7 miles to the kilowatt hour. Now, my wife doesn't drive fast, and I've not driven it fast very much. I've tried it once or twice, but not much. It's been averaging 3.7 per kilowatt hour, but I know it's not the right time of year. It's cold and whatever, I understand that. But the last couple of days, it's been down to 3.1, 3.2, and I've thought, I know it's dropped a bit in temperature, but it's not dropped that bloody much. But anyway, I've been playing about with it, and I thought, right, okay, I'll see what happens here. So I've been taking the regen on the, can I just say, on the MG5, when I got in my MG5, I've got 2 little toggle switches there, and I just put it in the lowest regen 1, and I put it in eco mode every time I get in it, and it just goes, and that's the end of it. Don't have to touch it. With the MG4, you've got the normal setting, which it sets it to the highest level of regen. So for the last couple of days, I've took it out of that and put it in the lowest one. So it's not regenning anywhere near much. In fact, the car will roll for ages. When you take the foot off the throttle, it will just roll. It just goes. And it takes a while for it. I saw that what I've been doing, I've been watching it. I thought, right, okay, I'll leave it in low, left it there, taking my foot off a bit earlier because of the traffic lights or whatever's coming up, I can see in front of me. Leaving off a little bit earlier. And it's gone from 3.1, 3.2 to about 3.6, 3.7 again.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the whole thing about high levels of regen is there's a bit of a sort of magic whispers that this is the best thing because, you're putting all that power back in. But actually, because it's slowing the car down, you're covering less distance. You put all that, use that energy to get the car up to 50.
Yeah.
You take your foot off and it slows it down to 30 and you think, oh, great, I put all that power back in the battery. But the round trip from the energy into momentum and then back into the energy again, I think it's only like about 75, 80% of round trip efficiency. Where if the car is rolling at 50 and it keeps on rolling, you're covering distance for no energy.
That's exactly what's happening, Barry. That's exactly what's happening.
You're using the momentum. So there's a sort of cultural thing about what EV driving should be like and how it should be different from driving a conventional car. But I've done the experiments. I did it back when I first got the ZS, so it was 3 years ago, and definitely I got 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 miles per kilowatt more by using a low setting.
Exactly what I'm getting. I'm getting 0.5, 0.6 more by using the low setting on the Regen rather than having leaving it in its normal setting. Or instead of leaving it in normal, I'm now switching it from normal to eco, and the Regen's going from high to low. And
and when you put the brakes on, when you brake with the brake pedal anyway at that, so then it regens.
Yeah,
it puts it in, so you're more control of it. But I agree with you.
I will agree. It would possibly wear the brakes out a little bit quicker. They may wear down a little bit quicker than what they do when it's in high all the time. But the difference in the performance is totally different. It just rolls and rolls and rolls. It just keeps going for ages.
I think this is a red jersey thing,
When I take my foot off when it's in high, I take my foot off the throttle and it's in high, even in eco mode, take your foot off and it starts braking straight away. Well, when it's in low, you don't feel hardly anything. It just carries on rolling. So you've got to think a little bit further ahead and think, well, that's okay. I'll take it off now and just let it roll. It's freewheeling, basically.
Yeah.
It's much better. I think it's much better than the eyes.
More relaxing.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm the same. I automatically, when I get in the car, toggle it onto eco, toggle it onto one.
Yeah, I do the same, Dave.
Obviously, being in the Highlands, if you go up a hill, you're going to come down into Inverness. So I often, if I know I'm going to be driving 10 miles or so, generally downhill, I'll put it on 3 because I know there's more chance of regenning.
Keep your foot off the brake a bit more.
Yeah. I don't like the braking on Regen 3. I find it too abrupt.
I find that MG4 is far too abrupt on the ice and it just literally just whoop. You can feel it really goes down.
Clive Goodwin's asking about dynamic regen on the MG4. What's that then?
That's the adaptive, isn't it?
The adaptive
regen's where it uses the forward collision detection to basically work out whether, if it's a clear road ahead, it'll put it down to 1, and if there's a car ahead that it's following, it thinks it needs to apply a bit more braking force, it puts it up to 3, but it changes it as, so if the car in front moves further away, then it will ease off the regen. So it's basically it's like a radar controlled regen setting. It's clever. It's when it works, but I think the problem is, from a driver's point of view, is it's learning to trust the technology, and perhaps having in a normal car, when you take your foot off the accelerator, you've got a predictable amount of engine braking from the vehicle, and when it's got this adaptive regen, effectively sometimes you can take your foot off the accelerator and it'll feel like you're in 6th gear, and sometimes it'll feel like it's in 3rd, and you just you haven't necessarily got that until you've learning to trust the software that's why it's slowing it. Then it's that's what it does. But so regen on the Araya eco mode in D gives you a 0 regen effectively option, and then eco and B mode gives you like a level 3 regen. So different cars do it differently.
Miles, can I ask a question? We had the issue with the Mark 1 ZS and the Mark 1, I think it was 5. When you're in adaptive cruise control in the MG4, does it regen when you a bit like everybody?
Instead of using the brakes?
Yeah.
Does it put the brake lights on, you mean?
No, does it actually create regen when in adaptive cruise control? So when it lets off the power, does it?
It does, yeah. So if you're in adaptive cruise on the MG4, it uses the regen to slow the car down.
Yeah, because both of my ZSs don't do that, but okay, that's interesting.
I haven't tried the brake light side of it yet, but apparently somebody on the forum said it works. They tried it, they double checked it, and it does work. So the MG5, the Mark 1 anyway, had a problem with that, which was sorted out eventually. But the MG4 doesn't appear to have that problem. There's a couple of people who said they've tried it, somebody following them, and they say it works. So I'm not worried about that completely.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, Jeff May is saying one of Mike Fischetti Bean's old top tips was feathering the throttle whilst watching the power meter. Remember, Mike always was telling us that that's what he liked doing. So, right, we better move on, guys. We've still got quite a few things to cover. There's the MG5 facelift or restyling. Miles, they're available now, are they?
Yeah, we got our demonstrators in about 2 weeks ago now, and I got the chance to drive the car for the day and do a bit of a video review. So I think Stuart's just popping that up on the screen now. So did a comparison between the original MG5, which I had extensive experience of, because basically that was my car for the last 2 years. Not the same one, but the various MG5s were basically what I got as my company car to drive, and that was very comfortable. I really enjoyed the car. I mean, it says something that, you know, I work for a company where we have 5 Nissan dealers, 2 MG dealers, 4 Citroen dealers. We've got Kia, Hyundai, and Vauxhall, and I was driving an MG5 as my company car for 2 years. I could have driven, you know, a lot of other different, EVs, but the MG5 was the one that was most practical for me as a family car. I've been away on holiday with roof box. I've been away with the dog in the boot. You know, it does everything it needs to do. The facelift is nice. It feels a very thorough facelift. I think if you looked at them side on, you go, oh, actually, you know, they look quite similar. But when you look at obviously the facelift, the front, the list of the face of the car has been changed comprehensively. The LED headlamps now work great. The back of the car has been redesigned as well. But the main difference I noticed was the interior. That interior now is thoroughly modernized and feels more like the MG4, the ZS facelift, more like the MG4, if anything. It's a really nice place to sit. It's really comfortable. I mean, the seat comfort was always good on the old MG5. I always thought they were one of the most comfortable car seats we had in the range, to be fair.
I agree.
The really good supportive seats, but the new center console is lovely. The new screen sat a bit higher up on the dashboard, in a better position, I feel. And the interior quality feels a lot fresher. It feels a lot, you know, the textures of the fabrics they've used on the dashboard and on the sides and things. It all feels more modern inside. Basically, it feels nice. You know, I had no complaints really about the old car. I was down in London again last weekend, and every other Uber seemed to be an MG5 down there.
There's a lot.
So obviously they're working very well down there, but this new facelift car, it's got some features on there which are welcome. So we've got the 360 cameras, like we see on the trophy MG4 and MG ZS EV. We've got what else we got that's new? Smart. Yeah, we've also got the vehicle to load connector.
Yep, that's great.
So and real world, we tried a rapid charge in it, and we were getting, I think, 88 kilowatts, and that was a fairly cool day, and we'd only driven about 50 miles in it. So I think 88 kilowatt charging is pretty
decent,
really, for that size of battery. This is the same 61 kilowatt hour battery that we had on the previous MG5 long range. There is talk potentially of a extended range version coming out at some point in the future, depending on sales. I suppose it'll also depend on price point as to how they settle at. One of the nice things I thought actually about the car was the difference on the I've just seen it on the video now. The drive mode selector now is got like a domed sort of silicone sort of top on it, rather than being that sort of milled aluminium plastic before, that we found that people wearing rings would scratch with the hand as they were moving the hand across. So it's now a sort of domed
selector,
it's a sort of silicone-y sort of thing. It's sort of it lights, it illuminates as well. But that now is a sort of much, I think, more robust. It'll stand the test of time a lot better, I think, with that. But on the whole, I mean, the car's physically the same size. I think if you had problems with how the car looks before, if that was the reason stopping you from getting the MG5 before, because you thought it looked a bit like an old Passat, obviously that excuse is now gone because the car doesn't look like that anymore. It looks a lot more modern. It drives well. It's still got a slightly sort of Audi all-road sort of drive height to it. It's still a little bit more raised up. In fact, when you park it next to an MG ZS EV, there's only about an inch difference in height overall. So they're not, it's not a low riding estate car. It is, it is more sort of semi crossover. Yeah, no, I rate it. The only thing is obviously now that, when the MG5, I think Les, when you first got your MG5, you probably paid, low 20s for your car.
Yeah.
Low to mid, shall I say. And now obviously the car starts at 31.
Mid-30s now, isn't it, for the trophy?
So it's the way, we've obviously seen a lot of inflation across everything at the moment, but it's still a competitively priced car. It's still priced the same as what you'd pay for a Fiat 500 electric. So it's it's not an expensive car. But it is a good sort of 8 to 10 grand more than what you paid for the original version just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I noticed from the pictures, Miles, the HVAC system controls have been moved. Are they in the entertainment system now, like the MG4?
Yeah, like the MG4. Yeah.
All right, okay.
And they've changed the binnacle as well, haven't they, Miles, to replicate what's on the ZS too? I think.
Yeah, so you've got the sort of like the fish scales going up the sides of the dials. So it's not a fully TFT display like you've got in the MG4. You've got an MG4 sort of size TFT in the middle, and then you've got two sort of mock analog gauges that sort of digital gauges that go up the side.
The only thing that's missing, Miles, I've said it before and I'll say it again. What's up with the light coloured interior, please?
Yeah. Oh, the other thing as well with the MG5 is it can now have a 500 kilo tow bar on there as well.
Yeah.
So small camping trailers, even a little sort of teardrop trailer, or at least a bike rack, could all go on the back of there. So
certainly,
I think
vehicle to load, Miles, will be good for campers. I were using the vehicle to load today for a washing machine run and also a tumble dryer run. So and I was using the 5p energy from Octopus from the car. So it is really handy that.
One thing I actually just remembered about the MG4, one of the software updates that's out now will allow the vehicle to load to be used with the car switched off. Whereas previously you had to have the car all illuminated and lit up like a Christmas tree.
Well, that was me this afternoon.
Yeah, so now you can actually...
No, I've not. I've used it with the car switched off, Miles. I've used it. I've got one.
We might have the later version of software on yours then, but there was a software.
It's worked on mine.
Software on the ZS EV as well, I think, now that will do that as well.
Okay.
No, I plugged it in, started it going on the discharge side, shut the door, pressed the button, switched everything off, lights and everything went off, and it carried on working.
You've definitely got the update then, Les.
That's definitely what I was looking for, actually.
Yeah.
Because I thought I had read that you had to have the lights on and whatever. And I thought, well, that's not going to be any good at all. But no, it doesn't. Mine doesn't anyway. It worked without the lights on.
It's a good update if that's the case. That's brilliant. We just need it on our ZSs, Dave.
Yeah.
You can do it on the Mark II now. There is a software that's Mark II. Jake speaks to me. I'll sort it out with you. I'll get your car across and sort that.
That's fine. Thank you.
So what I'm would like to see on it would be that you can just connect it in, hook it up, and it will go both ways. It will switch between charge and the discharge. So you basically use it like a home storage battery. That would be great.
Yeah, that's
what I'm doing, Barry.
Yeah, that's going to require a bigger boat. That's going to require some different software there because, at the moment there aren't any chargers that are set up to do that. Most of the ones that are bi-directional chargers on the market for for vehicle to home purposes are CHAdeMO, and the new ones that they're working on will be CCS. They won't actually be on just Type 2. So it will require it to go in via DC to be able to do either bi-directional.
Yeah, that way you have the effectively you've got the you're charging the car via the AC CCS like you are part of it, but then you're drawing the power out as DC and then putting it through the inverter in the house. That's like the Nissan unit, isn't it? Which is the vehicle to home. And then you've got to make sure that you can isolate the the house from the grid. Otherwise, you're going vehicle to grid, and that gets a whole new
Different ball game.
set of ball game. Yeah.
I really do miss Stuart Whitman at times like this, because he used to glaze over just as I have when we talk
No,
about
the vehicle to load and the charging socket is the same. You can either have one, either be charging the car off your home charger, or you can plug that out and plug the other one in, and it gives you some power in the house if you want to use it for something outside. You know, I used it a couple of times recently just to try it. I've not done anything big with it. I just wanted to see, make sure it works okay with different things.
Yeah, Les, the
And it
thing
works
is that
fine.
you had to sort of plug one lead in or the other lead, but to just hook it up into your house mains so that it will
I don't
charge
think we've
it
got
up
that
in the
yet.
surplus and then pull it out when you need it is a different proposition.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it does work.
going back to the MG5 facelift, they're on the forecourts now, are they, Miles?
The MG5, excuse me, the MG5 facelift is now available for test drive at most good MG dealerships.
Some dodgy ones.
Well, there's some smaller dealerships might not have received their demonstrator yet because only a certain batch came into the UK. But I believe, we've got one in the showroom and one demonstrator per brand, so I presume that most others have as well now.
Is that at Burnley, Miles?
Burnley and Chorley.
Both got them. Charlie's got it, is it? Right, great, lovely. I'll be over there tomorrow.
Get the kettle on, Miles. He's on his way. So that brings us.
Actually, Les, if you're there tomorrow, I'll be at Chorley in the morning.
Ah, good.
There you go. That's a free coffee coming your way, Les.
Sounds like it.
So it's been going rather well for you, Miles. So we come on to the thorny issue of deliveries. Now I see Adam Jessop's finally got his, so he's chuffed. But poor Jan Tree, nothing yet. So
yeah. So basically, it's still very hit and miss. ZS EV, we are still experiencing shocking delays of like 40 to 45 weeks. And even then, that's sort of an average. And you'll see, Jan, I think it was saying that he's had a car on order since November last year. So certain colours are still taking longer than others. It's frustrating for us. If it's any consolation, Jan, I ordered a Kia EV6 in November last year. It was supposed to be here in March, and it still hasn't come. And I've got no sign of when that's coming either. And I think it might be March next year at the earliest. So it's happening across lots of different brands. One thing I will say is that Kia have told me that they're not going to price protect the order that I placed last November.
Oh.
So the Kia EV6 had like a £6,000 cost increase since I placed the order, and they're saying if you want the car still, it's £6,000 more, or cancel it. So I was like, well,
we sell it to somebody else.
Yeah. So at least MG are price protecting their retail price, which is useful. The other cars, MG4 isn't bad. It's sort of 3 to 4 months. So place an order now. You probably see it sort of January, February. The MG5 facelift, about 3 months. Some stock has been dropped into UK as launch stock, a bit like they did with the MG4. So some dealers may well have a spare that they can sell you if you're wanting one particularly, quickly. You might be able to hunt around the dealers and find one that's actually physically in stock. But stock's more available on those models than others. The one thing I was going to say actually that was announced recently was that the MG3 is not going to be coming to the UK as an EV. It's going to be as a hybrid or a mild hybrid. It's basically just down to cost. It's the same sort of reasons as to why they've stopped making the Ford Fiesta. Is that basically the reason they're killing the Ford Fiesta off is because the new Euro 7 would add an awful lot of cost to it, and it mean that a small car that was £18,000, which is a lot of money for a small car, would now be 23, 24. And people that spend that sort of money expect to get something more focus sized. So they're just, they're sort of cannibalizing their own sales with the price point. If you were given a choice of an MG3 and MG4 and both cost 25,000, £26,000, you probably go for the slightly bigger one because you feel like you're getting more for your money in that respect. So, yeah, this era of cheap cars, I think all cars, I think there's talk now that basically ICE cars and EVs will have parity within the next couple of years, pricing wise. Unfortunately, that doesn't sound like it's the EVs that are going to come cheaper. It's that actually the ICE cars are going to get a lot more expensive because of the Euro 7 demands on what they need to physically put on the engines to make them clean enough to meet those standards.
Yes, emissions.
It adds an awful lot of cost. So, yeah, I think that realistically we're going to see some more cars coming from MG, but unfortunately the MG3 electric isn't coming anytime soon. That may change if there's a breakthrough in battery manufacture that makes it a lot cheaper and so on.
Well, I waited a while for that, Miles. As you know, I waited a good while for that, and it never came. And I finished up buying the MG4. Because that was the car she wanted, the MG3, but no, she got the MG4 now, so we're fine with that. For the moment, anyway.
So it's probably a good time, as we're discussing that, to move on to the last issue, which was, is it worth getting an EV nowadays with all the increased costs? And I see, as Clive Goodwin just texted, I think the VED added to electric vehicle cars is outrageous. I know it's something that splits a lot of communities. The one that got me exercised this week was Highland Council's charging points are currently 30 pence per kilowatt hour, and they mooted at a meeting that they would increase it to 81 pence, which just is such a colossal jump. And from our point of view up here, you think, my God, most folk come up to the Highlands to drive, see the scenery, taking the food, and then head back.
Drink the whiskey.
Drink the whiskey, yeah. It's kind of counting in with food there. 81 pence at any public charger. They have only mooted it. There's two other suggestions at lesser prices, but so I came, and it's funny how some folk come back saying, yeah, well, why should you get better rates than petrol drivers? Why should petrol drivers be subsidising EV drivers? And yeah, I get that. And I think I've always said since I've been on the podcast and on the forum, I'm happy to pay for the electricity I use as long as I've got a decent infrastructure and I can pull up at a charger with a fair chance of it working. I know occasionally one or two might not work, but when you're out in the back of beyond, you go from one to the other to the other. That North Coast 500, 4 chargers all in succession not working really did stress me out. So that's just my viewpoint. It's not
is this 30 pence a kilowatt going up to 81 pence a kilowatt for rapid charges or for 7 kilowatt charges?
It just said that they were putting up the charges or the suggestion was to put it up to 81 pence. So I would hope it would just be rapid charge at that, but I don't think it differentiated.
What I get really annoyed about is the fact that the prices of charging EVs out on the road for your rapid chargers has gone up disproportionately to the amount that petrol and diesel have gone up over the past year. Yeah, now I know that we've got a protection of there's some protection, isn't there, in that domestic electricity is protected, and commercially there haven't been any caps and things like that, so the input costs are higher than that. But the very fact that we're meant to be trying to encourage people to leave fossil fuels and their pollutants, that comes with it, and petrol has not gone up anywhere like the amount that hasn't gone up 2 or 3 times. They're not paying £6 a litre for it.
Yeah, and I think the issue as well is that obviously with fuel costs, diesel, petrol, they've had a fuel duty cut to when Rishi Sunak was the Chancellor in order to make it so that obviously it tried to reduce the inflationary rates, tried to reduce some of the burden on at the time when the wholesale rate of petrol and diesel was going up massively. And obviously they've done the same sort of support for the domestic EV charging, but for people that can't charge at home, it's really not, it's not cost effective to move to an electric vehicle for a number of people if they're going to be relying on public chargers that are charging, say, 65 pence per kilowatt hour.
And 4.8 VAT.
Overweight VAT on that, yeah. If you're paying 65 pence per kilowatt hour and you're getting in winter, let's say 3 miles per kilowatt hour, that's 21.5p per mile. If that was a petrol or diesel car, and they were paying sort of 170 a litre for petrol nowadays, that's that work out as 1 over. That's you have to do sort of 36 miles per gallon to beat you, basically. So most petrol cars that are doing 36 miles per gallon will, on current rate of petrol, be doing better, lower cost mileage than if you were charging at 65 pence per kilowatt hour.
That's right.
And obviously, if you're charging at 81 pence per kilowatt hour, it makes it even more expensive. So, you know, then the break-even point is like 30 miles per gallon. So it's, and you know, but it's so totally. They put the, I noticed they put the company car tax rate up to company car mileage allowance rate. So I've got an electric company car, and I can claim business miles back from my business from my company. And previously, up until this last month, it's been 5 pence per mile. I say if I'm charging at home and I'm on my off-peak electric, or I'm using my solar panels and my battery and stuff, then it's not too bad. I can cover that cost of 5 pence per mile. But if I'm charging if I was charging at a public charger and I was doing charged, I said 22 pence a mile on a public rapid charger, I'm in debt, and there's no way of sort of making up that difference. And if you a petrol car user and that petrol rate was that you could claim was well, if it was over a 1.6 litre engine, I think it was 22 pence per mile you could claim. Well, if you had a petrol plug-in hybrid with a 1.6 litre petrol engine, you could actually claim 22 pence a mile, even if you'd charged it on electric off-peak at home. So it's the way that businesses can account for this sort of mileage cost is different as well. They have now put the authorised payment up to 8 pence a mile, but that's still miles off the real world cost. Even if you look at sort of 34 pence per kilowatt as the current rate that, you know, the capped rate that we got till April for electricity, if you're only getting let's say 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, then that's costing you 10p a mile, you know, so you're losing out still by 2 pence a mile on that rate. If I'm driving my this Nissan Ariya that I'm in at the moment, that at the moment is getting sort of 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour on short journeys in winter, because it's a big thing to heat up as well, you know, and it's about the size of an X-Trail. And so that's costing me, so, you know, that costs me like 12 or 14 pence per mile to run, but again, only claiming 8. So I think that the incentives for turning towards electric car driving is less than it was, and the fact that the weirdest thing for this, I mean, the car tax, let's face it, if you've got a car that's £32,000, £165 a year car tax shouldn't be the deciding factor as to whether you go for that car or not. You know, there's a lot bigger, you know, that cost works out as what, like 40 pence a day or something, is it? 165 by 365, 45 pence a day is costing you in car tax. So it's a low cost relative to everything else. However, what I don't agree with is the mooted backdating it to all cars that were registered after 2017. All EVs that were registered. So normally when they do a tax change that affects cars in this way, like they did in 2017 when they moved from NEDC to WLTP figures and they accounted for that in a tax change, was that cars that were registered up until a certain date were price protected. So that's why you've still got some diesel on the road like a 1.4 diesel Peugeot 206, whatever, that's paying £20 a year car tax, or £30 a year car tax, or some diesels on zero still. And then post 2017, all cars apart from EVs were £165 a year as a standard rate. So you plug in hybrids were 165 a year and everything, and then you get over 40 grand, and then you're paying an extra 365 to make it up to £500 a year car tax as a luxury car rate. Well, they're now saying that this is going to be backdated to any EV that was registered after 2017. Well, if you've got a Nissan Leaf E Plus Techno that had the spare wheel kit fitted at the factory, that was £40,255 in 2019. So only if it had that option. So only if it had the spare wheel option would you have to pay car tax on it of £500. But if it didn't have the spare wheel option, then it wouldn't have. So that spare wheel should not make £365 a year difference.
No,
it shouldn't.
No,
it really shouldn't. So I think that but then again, this is all mooted to start in 2025, and we are due a general election before 2025. So chances are that all this stuff that's been talked about in this autumn statement was mainly a way of appeasing the financial markets, that they had a plan of trying to recoup some of their losses, and that eventually it's going to pay it off, and they're going to use electric cars as the thing. It could all change by then, because if a different prime minister, a different political party gets in, then they can
change again
and just announce something else. It's so whilst I think that the announcement has come at an inopportune time, a time when electricity is expensive, when electric cars are costing more this year to run than a lot of other cars. The benefits are all that we have previously enjoyed. The plug-in car grants of £5,000 back in the day, and free car tax and all that sort of stuff is all dying. But I think they're going to have to do something. For realistically, electric cars only started to get good about 2017, 2018. They only, prior to that, they all had fairly pish range. So I think that for people to want to make the change to EV, they're going to have some better incentives. Or, like you say, if it's everything's £165, then fair enough. But I think that don't backdate it to those cars which are already, you're making compromises because of the range. You're making compromises because of the battery size, and it's not a Tesla Model Y, is it? Let's face it. If you're driving a 2017 Leaf 30 kilowatt hour, or an original version Kia Soul EV, or a 22 kilowatt Zoe, or an 18 kilowatt hour VW up, it seems a bit harsh that should be taxed at £165 a year.
My only beef with it was I think with electric the way it's going, the price of electricity, I know petrol's gone up, everything's gone up, but at the end of the day, the price of electricity today is higher than it's been forever, I think. And then they put this on top again. I'm not bothered about £165 a year, don't bother me in the least. What I'm saying is, I think it will make people look twice at buying an EV and think, no, that's £7,000 cheaper to kick off with, and it's no different to rub. So I'm going to get that one.
Les, can I just ask you a question? Did you, when you made the jump to electric car, did you have the ability to home charge?
Did he have the ability to home charge?
Did you have a home charger?
I didn't have an home charger when I first got it, no, but I got it straight away when I got the electric car.
I think I'm assuming all of us on the forum tonight probably have home chargers, and I think the big one is for those that don't have the ability to have a home charger. I think that's the break point, and that's the majority of people. I don't even know what the percentage is of houses with no driveway, but those are the ones who might want to take the jump that, unfortunately, because of the high pricing, are going to be put off, aren't they?
Definitely.
Yeah, apparently last census it was about a third. Oh, sorry, 40%. Stuart should put about 40% people don't have off-road parking.
Yeah,
I can believe that.
And there will be a percentage of those people who have off-road parking who still don't have sort of an easy access to be able to charge the car because of the orientation of the house to the driveway, or
Yeah.
the garage might be separate from the property. You know, it might be that it doesn't, you know, it's a separate garage, a detached garage, which then needs its own electricity supply running to it. So, yeah,
I just think it'll put a dampener on people taking up the electric vehicle, which we want. The government's given us incentives for God knows how many years now to do this, to try and help things and make things better than what they are. And then suddenly they just go, boom, that's the end of that. I think it'll damage the market quite honestly. For a while, it'll come back, but they'll damage it for a while.
Yeah, there's a few of us who are together, and I want to move away from an EV now.
Oh, I wasn't.
And the guys were openly saying that before the cutoff comes, they're going to buy the latest petrol car or diesel car that they can.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So that they can sustain it. Like, that's not what the government set out to achieve, surely.
Yeah, you just have to wonder, you know, who has actually got the incentive to keep the fossil fuel and the ICE car industry going, you know. Well, who's investing in oil to a great extent and oil exploration, and who's got shares in the large oil companies and things like that? And just look at your politicians and maybe ask your local MP at the next election what investment that they've got personally and involvement in those industries. And I think there's a big bias there.
That would be good, Barry, but the politicians will not say something completely different 2 weeks later. That's the only thing.
Freedom of information.
I believe BT's announced today a massive amount of money being put into chargers.
BT?
I've seen that on the news today. BT's announced something today about they're going to start building charging hubs. I'm not saying it's in the UK. I don't know what it is because they're a worldwide company when all said and done. But they are going to start building these massive charging hubs for EVs in the future. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, I don't know. I just don't know where it's going, quite honestly.
I think that realistically, I think what we all think, you know, obviously we're converts, we're EV drivers. Because we saw the light. We did it. Some of us did it for financial reasons. Some of us did it for ecological reasons. Some of us did it a bit of both. Some because you drove it and you thought it drove better than a normal petrol diesel car. But I think overall, the main driver for anyone, unless they are considerably wealthy, is that it's the affordability of it. You know, everyone would want to do the right thing as long as they can afford to do so. You know, it's when this cost of living crisis hits. So I remember it was Frankie Boyle said back in 2008, 2009 when it was the last sort of financial crisis. He said before the crash, he says, I wanted to make sure that chickens were well looked after, that they had they're all free range, that they had their own little spot in the sun. He says, now I don't care if the first light that the chicken sees is the one inside my fridge. And it's people are very very keen to make sure that think about other people and put other things first, but it comes down to yourself. You've got to afford what you can afford. And if that means that you're not going to buy free range eggs because you can't buy any bloody eggs at the moment if you go to the supermarket. But if it means that you're going to get caged eggs instead of free range eggs because that's the way that you've got to cut your cloth, then
you've got to buy them.
That's the decision you're going to make for yourself, isn't it? And in terms of cars, you'd love to have an electric car and save the planet and all the rest of it. But if it's going to cost you more than your old diesel car, realistically, you're going to keep your old diesel car. Unless the carrot and stick thing needs to be sorted so that if you can't beat people with a stick if they can't afford to change anyway, you've got to give them some carrots back. You got to give them some incentives to switch, which is what we had with the government grants, which is what we had with the free car tax. But I think it's just yes, EV sales are on the up. the hockey stick curve is is going up, and we are seeing more EV sales year on year. But are we at the tipping point? Are we actually at the point where we're not at the point yet where sort of 10-20% of our sales are EVs? Even so, we're still not anywhere near. We've overtaken diesels, but only because nobody, saying that you're driving a diesel nowadays is a bit like saying that you like to beat up seals with a club on a weekend. It's not really, the done thing to drive a diesel, really. But people are going for EVs generally because they think that they're going to improve their own financial situation. They're not going to be worse off. Certainly, you wouldn't want to do anything if you're going to make your family worse off at a time of financial crisis. So I guess for me, I think that the government needs to still do more to assist. I think that the loss of the grants for the home chargers. I got a £500 grant to my home charger. It still cost a fortune, but nowadays, if you're starting in most basic chargers at £700-800, that's a disincentive for people to get an electric car on the off, isn't it? If you've got to, it's a barrier. It's a barrier.
You've got to remember that if you're buying a car at 35,000, it's going to cost you 36,000 by the time you fix the charger up for it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You've got to have these things to go with it, haven't you? You know what I mean? You can't work one without the other.
Miles, have car manufacturers stopped offering incentives for chargers? Do you remember MG offering the pod point? And I think my mother-in-law bought a Peugeot and she got a pod point for £329 September last year.
Yeah,
doing that kind of thing.
MG have stopped doing incentives.
Yeah,
Nissan are doing an incentive at the moment where you get £200 off a wall box charger.
Okay.
But
few and far between.
Yeah, there's not really any. I suppose from the manufacturer's point of view as well, they're a bit cautious at the moment about offering too many incentives at a time when they can't actually supply the product in the first place.
Yeah.
And with the inflation rate at the moment and long lead times, if they say to them, okay, we're going to sell a car. Let's say they're going to sell a car for £30,000, and the manufacturer think they're going to make £2,000 profit out of that car. But then there's 10% inflation. They either choose to sell the car at £33,000, or they're going to try and hold it at £30,000, but potentially make a £1,000 loss.
Yeah.
In that sense, so it's so the long lead times aren't doing the manufacturers any favors. The inflation rates are horrendous and making it really difficult for them to stick on costs. And so if you're going to offer a couple of freebies now, potentially it's going to eat into what little profit you may still be able to recoup at the end of it. So I think that's why obviously when MG had cars aplenty and we were like a 1 month lead time on cars, they were offering loads of discounts. Now that we've got to the point where with ZS EV we're almost at a year's lead time, there's no point MG offering any further financial incentives because they can't supply the cars they've taken the orders for at the moment.
That makes sense.
Hey guys, I'm noticing the time. We're well into our hour, so maybe start looking at pulling things to close now. Has anybody got any issues or anything that they've just remembered that they want to bring up?
Not from me.
No.
I'm very conscious that we maybe should have a charging special or a charging cost or the cost of driving an EV special at some stage. We've spoken about it in the past, but even just by the amount of comments going about how much it is costing to drive an EV now might be something we should look at. So we'll I know Stuart's listening in the background. We'll maybe have a look at that for an agenda one time. So I'll bring this to a close, guys. Before we go, everybody, if you're interested in the Aura electric car and the new version, which has been launched as the Aura Funky Cat, it's available now to test drive from November the 28th. If you want to know more information, please sign up at our sister forum, auraevs.com. And there's more information there. Certainly, there's one or two good YouTubes on the new Funky Cat, which looks quite a nice car, I've got to admit. So thanks. That's all for our podcast this week. My thanks go to Barry Hager.
Thank you very much. And I hope everyone's enjoyed the podcast this evening.
And well done, Barry. You made it through. Barry's been feeling pretty lousy the last few days, so well done. As ever, a huge vote of thanks to Les. Good hearing from you, Les.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody. Hope you're feeling better soon, Barry.
Thanks.
Jake, good to see you again. Thanks for you. You've got a collection of MGs there, so it's always good to hear from you.
Yeah, cheers, Dave, and thanks, everybody.
And Miles, thanks very much for your input yet again.
No, thanks, guys. It's good to see you all. And let's maybe catch up with you tomorrow, mate.
Maybe.
Oh, we're all turning up for this free coffee. I'm coming for an excellent free coffee.
Oh, we can do caramel lattes and everything now. We've got a really fancy machine.
Have you got any biscuits? Any biscuits, Miles?
I'll find some. I'll find some later.
Les, I'll bring the shortbread. We'll be back with our Christmas podcast on the 21st of December. If you found the podcast useful, please click the like button. And if you subscribe and click the notification bell, you'll also get notified next time we go live, which is particularly useful if we have to change the day at the last minute or whatever. So from me, Dave Stewart, thanks very much, everybody. Good night, and hopefully we'll see you on Monday, December the 21st, 7:30.
And don't forget your Christmas jersey.
Oh, sure, please, no. Goodbye.